Hello, everyone. Welcome to MarketBeat Mondays, where we are going to be breaking down some of the big movers of last week and moving into what could be some big catalysts this week, along with some of the big market moves that already happened just to start out the week. Joining us today are our regular analysts. We have Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes with us today. Guys, thank you so much. We just did this live stream thing again Thursday last week, or was it Wednesday or Thursday last week? We were talking about NVIDIA earnings. It was another
That
big
was
one.
Wednesday.
Wednesday for us. So today we are talking all about the biggest move of the day. So I want to start out with the biggest one, and that is the steel announcements and those steel stocks that went a little crazy. Thomas, why don't you break us down on what was the announcement today that had so many different stocks moving?
Well, the tariffs on steel were raised again. So it's just a huge input cost for lots of industries. Automobile stocks were hit pretty hard by that one. But of course, American steel stocks have been shooting higher. How when you look at, I think, steel dynamics, especially, the market shot up, but it was kind of capped at resistance. So I kind of see the thing happening where the market made this knee-jerk reaction on the news, but it also expects that, steel tariffs were raised today. They'll probably get retracted later on this week, and there'll be some volatility back and forth with that situation for a while. Again, it's uncertainty is in the air. It just depends on where it all ends when it's all done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, let's talk about some specific stocks here. I want to talk about some of the names that saw some of the biggest moves in the market
Right.
today. Why don't we start with the first one, and that would be Cleveland Cliffs. Do you want to
Yeah,
walk us through that one a little bit here, Chris?
that one shot up about 23%. That was one of the biggest winners because it's up now to $7.20 a share. Interesting thing about that one was they were the ones that were trying to buy U.S. Steel, and so they're actually turning out to be a big beneficiary of the announcement.
Very good. So that's Cleveland Cliffs. Sorry about the audio there, guys. We just had a little bit of a technical difficulties with that one. So, Chris, I'm going to bring up that chart one more time, and hopefully this one works okay where people can still hear you. But like you
Sure.
said,
Right. Yeah, so that was the one that Thomas was noting about. This one, it doesn't look, let's see here, STLD.
STLD.
Yeah. So it shot higher, but it didn't hold the gains. So it was up to around $141 a share early today, and then it shot down to where it closed around 135. So it didn't lose a ton,
Right.
but unlike some of the other steel stocks, it looks like some investors kind of backed off on that.
Right. If I could comment on Cleveland Cliff, I'm seeing some of the same things in this chart that I saw in the steel dynamics chart. The stock shot up almost 25% at the open. It closed near where it opened, but the candle that it formed is a doji. It's below a significant moving average. The short interest was pretty high, so I think a lot of this move might be short covering. So, I mean, it was a big move today,
Yeah.
but I don't see it really sticking for the long term unless we know for sure that these steel tariffs are going to stay really high. And even in that case, there's a risk that they're not going to stay high because with steel tariffs up at that level, there's a real risk of global economic activities slowing, turning into a recession.
Right.
yeah, I think that's important to talk about. I want to hear both of your takes on that because we want to talk about in this video some potential catalysts for the rest of the week. This was the big movers of the day were these steel stocks today. But I think it's more important to talk about how long could this be around. We have really gotten used to this reacting to headlines. And it seems like Mondays are the big day, but they could
Yeah.
really be any day of the week where we get a headline and it makes a certain industry or certain stock move quite a bit. But the big question is how long does it stick around? So what do you expect the long-term impact of this announcement today with the steel tariffs? I know it had some impact on automakers too. Is this long-term? Is this just today? What can we expect the rest of this week, Thomas?
I think that this announcement just plays into the tariff and trade news that we've been having. It's just one more development in the cycle. As we've been saying, tariffs are up today. They'll be rescinded, retracted the next day. Maybe next week they come back. I think that if it's not going to be steel tariffs, it'll be tariffs on something else this week or next week or the week after for weeks, possibly months, until we get finality in these trade negotiations. When that happens, the market can breathe a sigh of relief. I think until then, uncertainty is going to be at the maximum, and we're going to have volatility.
Really good point, Chris. Anything else you want to add about what you think about long-term impact of some of these the today's announcements on steel tariffs?
Yeah, I think if it would be very difficult right now to be a long-term investor in steel stocks. It's steel today, and we don't know what it's going to be next week or the week after that. But you've been seeing a lot of this volatility. It's a trader's market in that regard. The announcement about the steel tariffs came in after the market closed on Friday, and traders took advantage of it. They were ready when the market opened, and they popped it up, and they're probably going to start taking profits now. So if you're a long-term investor, I think it's best to probably stay away from some of these volatile sectors and stick with best-in-class blue chip stocks until we figure out what the entire impact of these tariffs are going to be and what the final impact of the tariffs is going to be.
That's solid advice. I just pulled up some more of the volatility that you can see in these charts, and all of them. That volatility is some sound advice there, Chris. I think of just staying out of the sector for now until we can figure it out is a good way to look at what's going on in this industry right now.
Investor. If you're a trader, knock yourself out.
Which we have plenty of those on the channel too, and we love it when you watch too. So thanks for having the wide variety of people out there. I wanted to give a shout out to some of those joining us today. We so appreciate you guys tuning into this live stream thing that we're doing every Monday here at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out here on MarketBeat. We will be live streaming on the channel MarketBeat Mondays, 4 p.m. Eastern time. So thanks to those who have joined us. eHelp, we always love when you are here. Thank you for the encouragement. I love hearing the stocks that you're interested in too. We've got a few different ones coming in. Midwest Cannabis, you joined us today. Thanks so much for being here. I'm glad you could make this one. So I want to give Thomas and Chris some time to look up some of the names that you guys are putting out there. And one is Dollar General. We want to hear about that. T-Man wants to hear about CrowdStrike as well. Let me see. And had another one earlier on ETFs all around. It was a really good day. Agree with that. I think the first one, if I go back to it, was SoFi. They're looking for an update on SoFi. So we've got a lot of names to dive into today. We had some of our own names we wanted to talk about. These are all about diving into some stocks that you are looking at this week. We can talk about what might be moving in those stocks this week. So let us know what you want to hear about. While we get that list together of some of the stocks that we're going to pull up here in a minute, we're going to go back to the one we talked about in a live stream on Wednesday last week, and that was NVIDIA. That was a really big deal last week, guys. Thank you for your time last week when Chris and Thomas broke down NVIDIA. What is it doing after earnings? We saw that immediate spike the first day. What's it back to doing right now?
It's drifting higher. It hasn't really moved up to set a new high yet, but there is some upward bias in the price action. That's due to the results, which were strong, but also to the analyst response. They've been lifting targets since last week. So the consensus is rising. The upside potential is still there. I think the market is consolidating, getting ready to make this move.
Yeah, very good. There's not so much movement, like you said. It's kind of been about around the same where it's been. Haven't seen anything major happening with NVIDIA, but we have seen some pretty big moves in one of Chris's favorite stocks that we wanted to talk about too. I just saw it come through in the comments, and that's Palantir. Chris, you had a really good article this last week about some big contracts coming through for Palantir. So walk us through kind of what kind of a week Palantir had this past week and what you're expecting this week.
Right. So the big news for Palantir last week was the Trump administration's announcement that they want to create a Golden Dome strategic defense system for the United States. It's modeled after the Iron Dome that protects Israel. Of course, Israel is about the size of New Jersey. And so you're talking about building on a system like that on a more massive scale. Palantir is expected to be one of the partners for that initiative. It's going to be the key software provider. That makes sense because a lot of its capabilities align very well with that. And the stock went up to an all-time high on Friday, pulled back a little bit towards the close, and then this morning it popped up again to a new all-time high. And heading into the close, if I'm looking correctly, it had fallen back a little bit, but it hadn't drifted all the way back to the all-time high on May 30th. So we're still we're trading slightly below the all-time high, but we're above where it was on May 30th.
Yeah, do you expect any of that news, Chris, the announcement from last week, to still impact Palantir this week? Do you expect any major moves in Palantir this week? We have a lot of Palantir fans on this channel, and they're
Right.
curious to see any catalyst that might be moving the stock.
I don't know of any news coming out that would drive the stock higher. For that reason, I might caution traders that the stock could drop a little bit in the short term as people take profits on this new high. Long term, again, the case for Palantir doesn't really change. It just depends on where you want to buy the stock at what price. But yeah, I would expect that you might see a little bit of a contraction this week as without more news to drive the stock higher.
Very good. And those watching and listening right now, be sure to check out the channel tomorrow. Chris and I are going to have a whole video on that Golden Dome proposal and the stocks that could benefit from that. Chris had a great article on that I thought would make a good video. So we're going to have that for you tomorrow. We'll dive into it much more. So we can kind of end our Palantir discussion there. I wanted to say hi to more of the people tuning in. Hi to Julie. Hi to John. Thanks so much for being here for our live stream. Ray, Leslie, thanks for being here. We love to have you here. I also love seeing all of the different stocks that you guys are interested in. There's a lot of suggestions coming in today. We love to see that. I don't know that we're going to hit all of them, but we're going to start diving in. We'll do one that's a familiar name. A few people have asked about Applied Digital. This is one we talked about last week. We talked about it actually twice on this channel last week. It came up on a few different lists. And the stock has had a really good run. So I'll give you guys, Chris and Thomas, just a chance to pull that up so you can see what that chart is doing. But Applied Digital is that data center company, that really small cap company that's just bringing a new data center online in my tiny hometown. And so lots of interest in this stock. And that's why we're seeing such a boost, because there is supposed to be some moves coming for this company by the end of the year. But so the question we have from viewers, Thomas, is it too high to get in right now after this big boost that it's seen, or is it still a good buy where it's at today?
I'm looking at this chart right now, Applied Digital. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it shot up by 48% today.
Yes, that's right.
Right, so that's a pretty hot move. New lease deal with Coreweave. Right, so that's fantastic. So Applied Digital just got a huge $7 billion deal with Coreweave. Coreweave provides NVIDIA-based compute space. Applied Digital is the infrastructure that has that compute space. So I think this is a match made in heaven. Looks like a huge affirmation of their business and their shift into AI. Whether or not it's too high, I need to dig some more into the numbers with the revenue. But looking at the market response, I would say that this market is probably going to trend higher over time. The volume today looks like it's 5 or 6 times the average daily volume. I mean, that's huge. We've got a strong signal in the MACD. Yeah, the chart looks good to me.
Yeah, I also love that we just talked about this stock last week and then it went crazy this week. So let us know, did you happen to buy this one? Leslie said she's sad she sold her Applied Digital. If you happened to buy last week and are benefiting from this big boost today, congrats. I think the question is this a sign of strength moving in the future? Is this just going to continue going up? Or could this potentially be a brief bounce when you have so much movement and so much volume, like you said today? Could this be short-lived for Applied Digital, or do you think this is a long-term play?
It looks like a long-term move to me. The deal with Coreweave is an affirmation of the business. It provides revenue. It provides a clear visibility for the future. We can expect Applied Digital to build more data centers and attract more clients. I think that this is the beginning of a long-term growth story.
Yeah, I'll take a little different approach on that because I'm looking at the stock and I'm seeing 36% short interest on it. So I'm thinking some of what happened today might have been a little squeeze action, which tells me that this rally up to this point might come down a little bit. But I think the long-term case for Applied Digital is still strong because when it comes to data centers, it really comes down to you either believe in artificial intelligence or you don't. And if you believe in it, then you know that we're going to need data centers, and we don't have near enough of them. So the long-term case for Applied Digital is great. This short-term move, I don't know if it holds.
Yeah, really good advice on this one. Shout out to T-Man. He said he bought 200 shares of Applied Digital last week because of our show. So that's a good day for you, T-Man. Happy to hear it. Thanks for watching today too. He has a couple of different stocks he'd like us to look into today, so we can do that. I think we're going to go back to SoFi. Thomas, I know you've talked about SoFi before, so I'll give you a second to pull up that chart if you want to pull up SoFi. Chris, we can look into Dollar General. We had somebody who wanted to hear about that. Yeah. Going back up. I think that might have been a T-Man one too. Yeah, wanted to hear about Dollar General. So let's look. Chris, you can look at Dollar General. Thomas, why don't you give us a little rundown on SoFi?
Let's see here. The chart's looking pretty good. It looks like they just got an upgrade today. Right, so we got AI-powered financial services. Accelerating growth and upgrades. Yeah, this chart's looking pretty good to me. It looks like we've got support at a cluster of moving averages that includes the long term, the medium term, and the short term. Indicators are set up for a nice bullish swing. Looks like there could be some resistance around 1450, but once we get through that, there's pretty clear sailing till about 1650. Let's see. What was that? Upgrade was right. Targets. So the analysts don't see a lot of upside right now, but the revision trend is positive. They're leading to the high end, which could be up to $20. So, I mean, we're looking at potential for new all-time or new highs.
Yeah, there's potential for this stock. I want to hear, Thomas, too, about your thoughts on basically what you like about SoFi as a company. What are some of the fundamentals of what SoFi does that make this one a good company long-term for you?
Well, it's just a comprehensive financial platform. So it's an easy go-to market strategy. It's got a very good direct-to-consumer business. The AI aspect of it is helping it to not only attract business, but attract quality business. So that's really got the long-term growth outlook is very robust, including margins and earnings.
Very good. All right, let's move into Dollar General. Chris, what do you think about that stock and what's going on with it this week?
Sure, and I'm sure Thomas is going to want to weigh in on this because I think Thomas is the one that's going to be writing about this after the earnings report tomorrow. And that's really what we've got going on right now. Stocks selling off into the earnings a little bit, but the trend looks positive for the stock. Analysts have been raising their price target. Of course, we know what Dollar General is. It's one of the dollar stores. It's catering to that lower income consumer who's been under a lot of pressure. So analysts are going to want to hear about not just what the results are tomorrow, but what their guidance is. And I think that's going to be key here. Again, I think analysts are expecting a good report because they've been raising their targets. But if Dollar General doesn't deliver, we could see some weakness in the stock.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the analysts right now, and it is definitely a hold right now from the consensus rating. But the high side out there, they're saying 170 as a potential for this consensus price target on Dollar General. Thomas, what do you think?
The dollar stores generally can be good cash flow machines. They have produced some solid growth in the past. The group has carried some dead weight for the last couple of years, and you can certainly see that in their stock price action on the weekly chart. Dollar General's been trending lower for like 2 years. However, recently a bottom has been forming. There's been some positive news in the traffic and in the metrics, consumer metrics, but also Dollar General and Dollar Tree are both working on turnarounds, rationalizing their footprints, trying to reinvigorate growth, and that's resonating with the analysts. So if we see some traction with these turnaround stories and a continuation of these positive consumer trends, these stocks could continue to rise.
Thomas, isn't it Dollar General that has more exposure to China, the tariffs?
I'm not sure which one has more, but they're both pretty greatly exposed to China just for the cheapness of the supply chain.
Yeah.
And the
I knew one of them did. I wasn't sure about both, but
Yeah, speaking of that, that's a good segue. I'm going to pause on the individual stock evaluation right now. Although, Chris, I want you to look up one. We have a guest joining us from London for the first time, which I love to see.
Nice.
And he had an interesting question on a stock I don't think I've looked into before. It's a CRDO. Up strong since close. I'm wondering if it just recorded. So I'll have you look that one up, Chris, give you a second to kind of get up to date on it. And Thomas, I want you to talk a little bit about some of those economic factors that we can expect this week. I know there's some stuff with the Fed that might be coming out this week, some other factors, just to look ahead of how it might be impacting the market yet this week, Thomas.
Well, as far as the Fed goes, there's nothing official coming out, but there's going to be a lot of Fed speakers. So there'll be a lot of them making comments one way or the other about whether or not they think the interest rate should be where they are, being raised or lowered. That could cause some volatility, but it won't be any major market moving news. As far as visible economic catalysts, what we have this week is the labor data. So there'll be the ADP report, the JOLTS report on job openings and turnovers, the Challenger report on layoffs and hirings, and NFP report. As it is right now, the weekly jobless claims are trending very healthy, in alignment with seasonal trends, in alignment with healthy labor market conditions. There's no sign of weakening in the labor data. So I expect to see that trend continue across the board in this week data. As far as ADP and NFP goes, there could be some disparity between those two numbers because they don't tend to track in perfect alignment. I would expect to see job gains to be positive, wages to be growing, unemployment to remain low. There may be some elevated layoffs, but we've also seen elevated hiring recently. As long as those things are balancing out, we're still in good shape. As long as there's no big negative surprises, I think this data will keep the market where it is, not help it, advance a little bit.
Very good. That's a good look ahead about what's happening in the economy. I do think eHelp wanted to bring up the thing about the deferment, and that's something we continue to hear about. There's new legislation running through that has a lot of people concerned about adding to the debt. We've had the Moody's downgrade that happened a couple of weeks ago too. Anything concern you there, Thomas or Chris, that you want to talk about or to mention?
I mean, not anything that's concerning in a new way. As far as the national debt goes, that's been a slowly simmering problem for a long time. That's the analogy of the boiling frog. It's just been happening forever, and eventually we will boil ourselves to death with debt.
Yeah, important info there. Okay, Thomas, I'm going to let you look into the next one, which would be Hood. We've had a couple people ask about Hood, and Ash wants to know about that one too. Thanks, Ash, for tuning in. We've got so many other ones coming in too. I love to see all of this. We'll get to those in a minute, but I want to get back to Gabe's question. And Chris, I had you looking into that. So what can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so it's Credo. I believe it's pronounced Credo Technology Group. I'm not totally sure. And I'll be honest with you, Bridget, I want to be honest with him. I haven't really followed this stock, but I see it is making a strong move after earnings. I reported looks like a double beat, which is, so this is a company, they provide high-speed connectivity solutions. So they're kind of in that, they're playing in that semiconductor and data center realm. And one of the things that I've quickly looked at is that it looks like the stock's been rallying pretty hard since April. And one of the reasons for that is because they're saying that they're not as dependent upon Amazon as they were. Um, don't really know. It's up so strongly since April that I'm not sure if, you know, stock might be looking to pull back a little bit, but I will have to confess I don't know the stock too well.
Yeah, that's the best way. That some of these, when we've not had the guys haven't had a time to take a look at them. It's a fresh look at just basically
Yeah.
going over the chart and seeing where the company's at right now. So we'll dive into them as best we can, but we're just kind of scratching the surface on some of these. But I do love hearing the stocks you're interested in and getting to as many of them as we can. I'm going to have Thomas dive into Hood now because we've had a couple of people ask about this one, including Ash. This one's for you. So let's dive into Hood. Thomas, we've talked about it on the channel a couple of times before. What are your thoughts on what's happening with this stock right now?
Well, right now the chart looks pretty strong. The market has broken out to a new high. The indicators are in alignment with an uptrend. MACD looks convergent. So I would expect to see it continue moving higher. The company's been growing. It's been profiting. Some of the most recent news includes new features and expanding into new markets, which should help boost the growth and boost profitability. Um, right now, it's pretty strong. As far as analysts go, it looks like, right, we got positive trends there. Increasing coverage, firming sentiment, and a rising price target. Right now, consensus is lagging the market pretty solidly, but we've had a pretty significant shift in their sentiment. Analysts have shifted from reducing their price targets to raising them, and the most recent price targets are leading to above consensus levels and even a little bit more upside than what we have. Assuming the upcoming results are still good, that shift should turn into a trend and potentially continue leading the stock higher.
Very good. I like this. All right, we've got a few other that we want to cover. We're going to go for maybe another 10 minutes or so here. Again, this is new for us. I am blanking on the name of this stock. This is one that wasn't in the chat, but it's one we talked about right before we started, guys, that was kind of seeing a little bit of a short squeeze where there was a lot of action in the stock. And it was something that we had seen in the comments and some of our videos earlier over the weekend. Do you guys remember what the call letters on those were?
It was Lyra, right?
Lyra, that's right.
Lyra Therapeutics. So this has been an interesting stock for the last week. So these small cap biotech companies are always kind of wild. And for a lot of investors, especially long-term investors, they're kind of no-goes because they can be very volatile. And Lyra's been an example of that. So last week, I think it was Wednesday, they did a reverse stock split, 1 for 50. Generally speaking, those are not positive events for investors. But as I looked at the stock, it didn't appear to do a whole lot to the stock. But this morning, they released positive results from a phase 3 trial, and the stock ripped higher. And that made me think about something. So I looked quickly, and there's high short interest on the stock. So this looks like an example of some short covering that happened immediately after this announcement came out. Again, great if you were a trader and got in. From a long-term case, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we know whether or not this drug can go to market. But that's kind of the case with these biotech stocks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the amount of short interest. I just popped the chart up for a second with the volume there. That's a lot of volume on this stock. And you can already see it's starting to go down after that really big pop. Do you think there's just a lot of profit taking on an announcement like this? Or like you said, is there potential for that announcement to turn into something even more down the road? I think it's important for investors to know more about how to play these small biotech companies. Like you said, very risky, but sometimes there is a big payoff.
Do you want to look like Thomas?
Oh, yes. I think it could turn into something, but there are so many factors involved, the reverse split, and the short interest, the short squeeze. Investors and traders should expect to see some pretty wicked volatility before we see an established uptrend. There's going to be profit taking. The shorts are going to be repositioning. There's going to be more speculators piling into this market. So wait for opportune entry points, wait for the price to pull back, even potentially wait for more news to come out.
Right.
Yeah, the headlines are what really move these stocks and those announcements about those drugs and actual developments that they have. So that's very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
You have to be careful though, Bridget, again on stocks like these, because again, I understand why some long-term investors would want to get involved in companies like this, because if you do make it across the finish line, the stock is going to be a great buy. But it's also a playground for traders. And this stock is still a company that is not positive as far as earnings go, and it's making very little revenue right now. So again, you have to be careful here, especially after a pop-up like this.
Really good advice, guys. Well, I'm looking at, there was one other stock that we were going to look at from the questions from earlier comments over the weekend. Somebody just asked, they're wondering about if you have 5 stocks to watch. Jay, you want to get to PayPal. Okay, we'll get to it. I hear you got me. I found it just in time. So somebody look up PayPal. We'll look at that one next. But Coreweave, and Nebius in China and Coreweave. Las Vegas wants to know about that one. We kind of touched on that a little bit. I'm just kind of going through the comments really quick, guys, to see which one that we can talk about yet today.
PayPal chart is interesting. It looks like we have a head and shoulders bottom in play. Market moved up today. Confirmed support at a critical level. Looking at maybe the 72 level, 72.50 as the neckline. That would be my critical resistance point. Potential trigger for trading. We get a move above that, potentially a retest to confirm it as support. This market could rip higher.
Just for me, a newbie with the trading is not something I'm familiar with much, but this chart has so many zigzags in it, and it's a business that we're just all familiar with. PayPal's been around for forever. What could be leading this stock to have so many moves in it so quickly like this, Thomas?
Well, erratic growth, erratic profitability, concerns with consumer habits, all those things play into it. I haven't been a close cover of this stock. I'm looking at the earnings history right now. Right, so in Q1 it was just 1%. Yeah, so growth has been slowing over the last couple of years. So huge spike in business during the pandemic. Growth has been slowly winding down from 25% to about 1%. Profitability is still there, but not really growing that fast either. So yeah, this is just a story of a slowdown in growth. But now the industry is probably normalizing. Growth will be more normal, more sustainable, and that should help the stock, bottom and reverse.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped your mic there for a second on that one. Sorry, guys. Yeah, good analysis of PayPal. Wondering if there's any other stocks that we need to cover today. Leslie asked about, can you share 5 stocks to watch? Thomas had a really great video on 5 stocks to watch just this weekend. I'll make sure to share that one with you, Leslie, too. But it's posted on Sunday, and it's his 5 stocks for June. We can go over those too, Thomas, because I think that those are all good ones to talk about right now, too. If you want to just name off the list of the 5 stocks that you had for that one, 2 are really well-known names, but you ended with that last one. That's one of the newest stocks in the market that everyone is talking about right now. And I know somebody mentioned it in the comments too.
Right. That was last week. That was Coreweave, wasn't it?
Yes, talking about Coreweave. It made his list of 5 stocks to watch for June that are all getting a lot of really good analyst upgrades right now. And I know that's one of the biggest things that you looked at for this specific list in June, is looking at which stocks had the biggest upgrades, which one are getting the analyst revisions, and just overall just positive trending right now heading into June.
Right. And you guys have to forgive me. I cover so many stocks and I've written so many articles since, and I have to go back and touch base with what it is. But yeah, it's doing good. It's growing well. It's just got that new deal with Applied Digital. So it's definitely expanding its network, expanding its ability to provide services. The outlook for earnings growth and revenue growth is pretty robust. We're looking at hyper growth over the next 6 to 8 quarters. That could extend to another 2 to 4 quarters, depending on how demand for the business is. based on spending and demand from other of the big AI companies, it looks like CoreWeave didn't have any problem renting out its space, driving that revenue, living up to those forecasts.
Yeah, I've got the chart pulled up for CoreWeave too, and it's just such a short history, but so much growth in
Right.
such a short time frame. It had a little bit of a drop just over the weekend or just on Friday
Right.
last week, but then it's popped right back up again. So it looks like some strong action on this stock as well. Any other thoughts to share about CoreWeave and the future? I think it's not often that we cover companies that are so close to IPO, but CoreWeave clearly has something going for it if it's getting so much attention so early
Right.
in the market.
Well, so like this company's business isn't grounded so much in the expansion of AI infrastructure and like the development of models, but more so in the application of them. So you assume that, like ChatGPT is an AI model that lots of businesses would want to use. They're going to have their own version of it someplace, all their own data, and have all their own processing power. And that's what CoreWeave does. It'll provide all that computing space to the companies that are applying all of these AI models.
Very good. All right. Well, I'm going to do two final stocks that just showed up on my comment list, the chat list. Thank you guys so much for commenting. Jay Patel wants to hear about OReilly. So I'll go ahead and have Chris look up that one. And then Chris Lynn wants to hear about Broadcom. So we can talk about Broadcom. Thomas, we'll have you talk about that. And then Chris, we're going to have you talk about OReilly. And then we'll finish up with just kind of the biggest things that the two of you are watching this week. Again, these guys are our writers for MarketBeat.com. So they are writing many, many articles every week. They do several articles a day on different stocks. They're in the market every day, writing about different stocks every day. So they really have a good finger on what's going on, a pulse of what's going on in the market. But they don't know every single stock without getting a little bit of time to look it up. So I'm giving them just a second to pull up those charts. Thomas, if you're ready, I know we've talked about Broadcom before. If you want to talk about what's happening with that one.
Right. I was just seeing the chart and it looks pretty solid. We got an issue with slowing growth, but it's been outperforming. The guidance has been pretty solid. Analysts have been lifting their targets. There is some concern with end markets, but the company's become well established as like an AI, not so much infrastructure, but as the custom ASICs, the custom GPUs, custom CPUs that companies are going to need as we move forward to drive their applications and to build out their own infrastructure.
If I remember right, Broadcom was one of those stocks that members of Congress were buying quite a bit. If you're a subscriber on this channel, you know we've talked about that plenty of times here on MarketBeat about the congressional moves on different stocks. And Broadcom has been a popular one for a while now. What about Broadcom? Has different members of Congress involved? Another question I had on Broadcom, just looking at the chart, is they were hit really hard during the April downturn that hit every company very hard, but it seems like they took an even bigger hit than maybe other companies. So that's kind of a two-part question. Thomas, if you want to answer whatever you can on that.
Well, the big hit is really due to its exposure to Apple. It's one of Apple's largest suppliers. Apple, I think, is still its largest customer. Apple's got a tremendous amount of exposure to China, and so all of that played into its price pullback. But since then, we've seen a pretty strong rebound because the company is a leader in the custom CPU market. It's going to be a real leader moving forward. It's been showing some momentum in that area. It's just a matter of time to see the custom business really take off and overshadow its legacy businesses.
Awesome. All right, Chris, let's get to your stock, and that's OReilly. What can you tell us about that one?
Okay, so this is O'Reilly Automotive, and so this is playing the trend of auto parts companies. I immediately looked at O'Reilly, but I also looked at AutoZone because that's sort of considered the best in class, I guess, for the category. The two charts are remarkably similar, as investors might expect. You're seeing higher highs, little bit of a pullback now. Both stocks are trending at levels that they have not seen before. One thing I noticed about O'Reilly is Short interest isn't particularly high overall in the stock, but it has increased sharply over the last month. It's up about 23% in the last month. So there could be some pressure on the stock. It doesn't report earnings until the end of July, but with all the volatility that's still surrounding where tariffs are going to wind up, and I've heard some analysts today that was talking about it feels like the market's assuming that overall that's going to wind up in a 10 to 15% tariff range across the board at some point. That's still very bullish for auto part makers. It's not going to be, and with the pressure on automotive stocks today with the steel stocks and everything like that, I think there's going to be a lot of consumers that are going to be looking to keep their existing running as long as possible, so their long-term narratives in place.
Yeah, really good points on that one, Chris. And we had some comments that I think are really good too. And that's Julie says good dividend too. And also eHealth thinks it's headed for a 10-1 stock split. That would be interesting because it is.
Yeah, there's a split that's due later this month, like next week. What I would say about OReilly is it's on the list of stocks that I refer to as must-own stocks, especially for, not for dividend growth because there's no dividend, but they do have a very robust capital return. It's very similar to AutoZone in that it is sustainable growth, not robust, but sustainable, self-funded growth, and the capital return, which is aggressively reducing the share count each year. And that's why the stock price looks the way that it does, just trending upwards sustainably over time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good one. And I think, Chris, you made some good points too about just given the tariff situation, given the steel concerns, this does really make sense as an auto parts company that's just going to see more and more demand in the current state. So I think that's interesting and a good segue to kind of wrap up our live today. I could do this for a long time. There's so many different stocks to talk about. A huge thank you to everyone who has joined our live today. We love having you join us live and add your thoughts and your other stock suggestions to talk about to the comments and to the chat. We love it. If you're not a subscriber yet and you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you follow us all the time. It makes a huge difference for us here at MarketBeat to actually have you subscribe and follow. So thank you so much. Let's wrap up, guys, Chris and Thomas, by just talking about what you think could be some other things that you're watching this week specifically. And also, again, two-part questions. That's my thing for today, I guess. We had said we wanted to cover, do you think heading into June, we saw such a bullish May. Do you believe that that bullish trend is going to continue, or are you a little bit more skeptical on the volatility that might be coming yet this summer? So Thomas, you can go first. Chris, I want you to finish this up. But so Thomas, you're talking about what you're watching this week and then what you are specifically thinking about as far as bullish momentum heading into June.
Right. So what I'm watching this week will be the labor data. I think that we have bullish momentum heading into June, but we're really at the point where the rubber meets the road as far as tariffs and economic impact from Trump's policies. So I think that the market is really in a wait and see mode, to where we're going to wait and see what happens over the next 6, 8, 10 weeks, so we can see some sideways movement in the market.
Very good. All right, Chris, your turn. Let's see what your thoughts are on the market and the outlook for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, so I agree with Thomas with the labor data. That's going to be critical. And I think the market actually wants to see a strong jobs number. I don't think they want to see the weak number with the idea of that's going to be the catalyst for the Fed raising or lowering interest rates. I think they want to see a strong number right now, because I think if we see a weak number, that's going to make I think that's going to make investors nervous that the market's gone up too high and is maybe outperforming the actual economy. So that's something I'm going to be looking for. I expect the market to be pretty volatile. To me, you're either going to see investors sit on the sidelines for all of June, or you're just going to see them pick and choose their spots, because it's not only tariffs, but you've also got the budget bill that's trying to work its way through Congress. I think that's just going to be interesting, let's just say that. And I think there's just going to be a lot of headlines that are going to drive stocks up and down. Again, I think if you're a long-term investor with 2 5-year long or longer timeline, just ride it out. It's going to be an interesting time for traders, that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for sharing your analysis. I'm sorry I cannot get to all of the comments coming in. Amir, I know you want to get to VGT. We'll get to it next week, first thing. We're going to be doing this every Monday, so please join us back here again for Market Beat Mondays again next week at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to have some stocks ready to talk about, and you can add some more to the chat again next week. Chris and Thomas will join us again next week too. Chris, Thomas, thank you so much for your time today. I know this takes a lot of your effort, but you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you, everybody who tuned in and shared your comments in the chat. We really appreciate you joining us and hearing what you're interested in learning more about this week too. Thanks for joining us and following our content. And as always, happy investing, everyone.